Hey, my YouTube friends, Late Boy Scout here. First off, I want to say Merry Christmas to all my YouTube subscribers, all my friends out there. Thank you so much for watching. You are my Christmas present. Seriously. It is early December at the time I'm recording this video, and I sincerely wish you a Merry Christmas. I hope that you're going to be with family this year, at least with friends, doing something fun, capturing the spirit of the season. I sincerely wish that for you. And I sincerely wish that you will go and pick up some of these candy cane kisses. Oh my gosh. If you want a cheap and delicious holiday treat, pick up some of these candy cane Hershey Kisses. I'm going to have one right now. Holy crap, these are that good. Oh man. I'm going to eat those by the truckload. Dang, they're good. So I did a review on the Cold Steel Leatherneck SF. You're seeing some of that in footage right now. And then, after I did that review, it was really just kind of an initial tabletop. I took it out for its first test. It was a well-intentioned test, but the knife was not the right knife for that test. I think that became very clear when it clearly failed the test. It was an abuse test. Let's be clear about that. I make no argument against that. Yeah, it was basically abuse. It was hard use. Beyond the shadow of the doubt, it was hard use. And by Cold Steel's definition, yeah, it was abuse. But it failed that test. So I contacted Cold Steel. I thought, let's just see what we can do about this. Let's see if, let's let them inspect it, decide if it was any kind of a heat treat issue or whatever it was. Let's see if they're willing to work with me on this and possibly replace it. So I sent it in. It's been about 5 weeks since I sent it in. I sent an email asking for an update because I hadn't heard anything. Got a prompt response saying, we sent it. It should be at your P.O. box right now. All right, cool. So let's go check it out. So I went and checked it out, and here's what I got. A brand new Cold Steel Leatherneck SF. There it is, brand new in the package. Absolutely straight off the manufacturing room floor. All the goodies, all the brand new everything that you get with a brand new Christmas knife or whatever this knife might be for you. An absolutely brand new Cold Steel Leatherneck SF. So kudos to Cold Steel for replacing this knife. But that's not the end of the story. No, it's not. Should we leave this on the table? Let's go ahead and leave this on the table, actually, so you guys can look at it and admire it. I know it's a beautiful knife. I agree. I think it's a very good-looking knife. So, this was not it. That's not the end of the story. They also included in that package a very detailed and somewhat long letter. Just a warning here. If you guys are very opinionated about how you like to use your knives, Cold Steel is going to slap you in the face right now and kind of slap me in the face. But you know what? I'm a big boy and I can handle it. So let's get to reading. From Cold Steel, obviously the salutation is covered up for obvious reasons. I covered up the signature as well for obvious reasons. This letter is in regards to the above referenced item that you returned to us. The item has gone through inspection by our technicians and myself. After inspecting the knife, your knife, it is determined that there is an issue with the heat treatment of the knife, and we are sending you a replacement. The replacement is included in this package, obviously. Cold Steel, as a rule, does not approve of batoning as a normal use of a knife, whether our product or any other makers. Batoning is a rather controversial subject among knife users, with some believing that a knife should be able to take repeated batoning, and others stating that it is an emergency usage only. We tend to fall in the latter category. Between the simple physics of batoning versus chopping and the logistics of using a knife to do a job for which it is not designed, we consider batoning abuse. Now, a lot of you guys in the comments section of that testing video will 100% agree with this. A lot of other guys will not. Again, this is why this is kind of a controversial thing, controversial letter, let's put it that way. There's much debate online and in the knife community regarding batoning, once again. And there was a lot of debate on that video. Cold Steel considers batoning abuse of the knife. We use batoning in our tests and flatly call it abuse. That's true, they do. The knife and outdoor forums are loaded with misinformation and fantasies regarding knives and their performance. Batoning is an absolutely last resort for a knife. Instead of using the knife as a wedge to split wood, use the knife to make wedges and other tools for such purposes. Now that's actually really an interesting point, and I'm going to actually probably do a little bit of testing with that, because that's smart, and I'm going to see what I can do about that in the future. Making wedges to split wood. You know, clever. Yeah, I'll try some of that. For such purposes, the knife is not only heat-treated to be much harder than a wedge, so more brittle as well, though much better at holding an edge, but the physics of batoning is a disaster waiting to happen to a knife. Okay, let's see why, and then in the next paragraph they're going to explain why. Picture it like this. You are standing in an open space, and someone punches you in the head. All right, that doesn't sound good. Because you are in open space and your body can move freely, you are able to disperse the energy of the punch. Your hands, arms, legs, and body all move and pass the energy along so that it is not all absorbed by your head, so the damage is much less. Then, instead of standing in open space, you are against a brick wall when someone punches you in the head. Now, since you cannot move, all the force of the blow goes into the target, i.e. your head, making dispersal much less and the damage much higher. This is the same thing that happens to a knife when you wedge it into a piece of wood and smack it with another. The force does not disperse and is focused into one small area of the knife. Damage is going to happen. Okay, it's going to? Going to? K-bar BK7? Going to happen? Hasn't happened here yet. Carbon V SRK hasn't happened here yet. Hasn't happened here yet. I don't know about going to happen. But let's let Cold Steel have their say. I have watched your video, and what was done to the knife was abusive. The knife is relatively thin at 4.75 millimeters and is flat ground to a very thin edge. I'm going to come back to that point. The wood you were batoning through was very dry. Don't know how they knew that. And yes, you hit a substantial knot. This is a recipe for disaster, and it is not surprising that damage would occur. Again, because of the heat treatment issue, we are replacing the knife. Yes, they did replace the knife because they discovered, sorry, yes, there was some heat treatment problems with that edge, with the blade. Okay, awesome Cold Steel for owning up to that problem. You know, you could have just sent me the letter with the whole batoning argument and saying, that's why we're not replacing it. But instead, they said, you know what, there's a good chance, and I don't know how they determined that, but upon inspection and looking at it, determined, okay, this was not a good heat treat of this steel. Let's replace the knife for him. So big, huge kudos and thanks to Cold Steel for owning up to that and standing behind your product. Yeah, it took 5 weeks. You're no Leatherman, but you did replace it, so kudos. Kudos, my friends. Now, let me say this in response to that letter. Cold Steel is obviously an accomplished knife manufacturer who employs renowned designers. So their opinions about how knives should be used are definitely worth listening to. So, as for me, I'm taking their advice at face value and will try to incorporate much of what they said here into my practices. Guys, I've got nothing but respect for Cold Steel. And yes, I'm going to continue to be a fan of the tools they provide us with. I do have some answers, though, for what was said. Let me talk a little bit about emergency use items, because that's one of the points they made in the letter. Emergency usage only. Got it. I think they said that somewhere else. My point is, they believe and agree that batoning of a knife is emergency use only. You know what? I fully agree with you there. I do. Obviously, the knife is not the ideal tool for splitting wood. But I do consider knives, particularly large knives, to be emergency use items. And even the SRK, which is a smaller knife, I consider these guys to be emergency use items. I mean, it's not, hang on a second, where's my EDC today? You know, it's not a pocket knife, right? Today it's the Ripple. The Walmart version of the CRKT Ripple. Not a bad knife. I'll have a review coming out on this. My point is, what is this big blade for, if not for emergency use? Do you get what I'm saying there? What's another emergency use item? How about a Glock 19? Is that an emergency use item? Yeah, it is. Heck yes, it is. But do I only use it for emergencies? I have it for emergencies. I have it in case of emergencies. But I don't only use it for emergencies. Emergency use items have to be used in non-emergencies in order for you to know how to use them in emergencies, and in order to know that they will perform appropriately in that emergency. So what does that mean? That means I take my Glock 19 out and I shoot it a lot, and I train with it to get good with it in case of emergency, right? I take my K-Bar BK7 out and I put it through emergency use type use to make sure that it's going to work and to make sure that I can handle it well in emergency use. Same thing with the SRK, and that's what I did with the Leatherneck SF. Yes, batoning is an emergency use only method, but I need to prove these knives. That's my point. That's why I take them out on the outdoor outings that I go on. You know, these are all emergency use items, but you train with them, you prove them, and you prove yourself in case you're ever in a real emergency and you have to use them in that role. So yes, the Leatherneck SF failed because of improper heat treat, but let's get to the next point. I believe it also failed because of its geometry. Because of the geometry of this knife. What do I mean by that? It's full flat ground, as you can tell, and as he mentioned in the letter, 4.75 millimeters thin, thick, whatever you want to call that. K-Bar BK7 comes in a bit thicker than that. Not tremendously thicker, but a bit thicker. And it is not full flat ground. It is partially flat ground. Okay, there is a portion up here that is all stock. Okay, that is just that solid steel, and then it's flat ground from there down. What does that mean? Well, as you can tell from the wear on the knife, this is actually taking all of the impact and all the stress. This spot right here, and that spot there. What does that mean? That should indicate something very, very important here, actually. What that indicates is the blade edge gets that splitting started, but as you begin to drive this knife through that log, as you see me do, all the stress is then taken by the stock of the knife, because again, it is not full flat ground. Now, that may happen with this knife as well, I'm not sure, but I think that you're more likely to have that edge in contact with the wood a lot of the way down, okay? So you're stressing that edge more than you would be if you were using something that was partially flat ground like this. Does that make sense? And I think the wear on the blade proves my point pretty well, that that actually takes the majority of the stress, the stock of the knife, not the edge. And that's a big selling point and a big key to the geometry of the knife. So from this point on, I'm thinking, I'm not going to look for full flat ground blades for hard use. I'm not going to. This is my theory only, but my theory seems to be pretty well founded, that a partially flat ground blade is more desirable for this type of hard use, i.e. batoning, than a full flat ground blade. What's more, there's one more point I want to make about that, and that is just the geometry in general. When you have a partially flat ground blade like this, what you end up having is more material, which gives more strength to the blade further down. In other words, from this edge up, you've got an amount of space here that is actually quite thin, okay, and it doesn't reach a nice supportive thickness until it gets to the actual spine, whereas that supportive thickness is much closer to the edge here. So the pitch of your edge, on a full flat ground might be something like this, okay? Then when you get to a partially flat ground, the pitch becomes something like this. It's pretty easy to understand why the partially ground blade would have a little bit more strength on that edge. You've just got more material up here. And that's why I think that partially flat ground blades are probably just better suited for this type of emergency use. But yes, once again, it is emergency use only, and the only reason you see me testing them in this way is to make sure that they can survive that emergency use. Go. You guys saw that video of myself and, well, of Snow Lobo 95 out in the desert, taking his $15 M-Tech knife. This is one more thing that supports the partially flat ground theory. Taking that $15 M-Tech knife and driving it through a 6-foot log, okay, from top to bottom, 6 feet of wood, pounding it through that. No damage to the edge, no damage to the knife whatsoever. Why? Not because it's a superior steel, not because it's a expensive brand, because the geometry of that edge was such that it gave a lot of strength to that steel, to that knife, and really just turned it into a wedge splitting through that instead of an edge going all the way through that. Okay, one more experience, one more data point supporting my theory there. Recap. My thoughts on batoning, guys. Yes, it's emergency use only. But again, I think you need to practice the things that you're going to do in emergencies. If you don't, you won't know if they'll work when the emergency actually happens. My final thoughts on the Cold Steel Leatherneck SF. It is not an outdoors knife. A lot of you guys already knew that, already thought that, already believed that, already kind of scolded me for taking it into the outdoors and trying to prove it in the outdoors. Here's the thing though, guys. Tactical knife, any kind of knife, it's got no value to me if I can't prove it in the outdoors. Tactical use is emergency use too, is it not? And the best kind of simulated hard use I can put it through is outdoor use. So, no, it's not a wilderness knife. Is it a tactical knife? Yeah, it's a tactical knife, but I'm not sure if it will live up to your needs as a tactical knife. It is a beautiful knife. It is a good-looking knife, so maybe if you're only going to use this as a collectible, as a light-use wilderness blade, all right, you know what? For the price, again, around $50, $55, it's still a pretty good knife. I still like it. That's it, guys. I'm the Late Boy Scout. Thank you so much for watching. Once again, happy holidays, Merry Christmas. I'm going to eat some more of these delicious candy cane kisses. Thank you again for watching. Take care.